Powered by Riverside FM.
All right, so for this Browns Backers interview, please help me welcome from way down in New Orleans, the president of the New Orleans Browns Backers, Bobby. Bobby, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
Happy to be here. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So tell us a little bit about your chapter down there. What do you guys got going on?
Well, so our chapter's been around for 7 or 8 years now. We've got a small but loyal group that meets regularly. We've moved our bar a couple years ago from where we started. We're now at a bar called the Mid-City Yacht Club, which is also conveniently the local home of the Ohio State fan club here in New Orleans. And
nice.
So they meet there on Saturdays. We're there on Sundays, and they draw a little bit bigger crowd than us, but the bar treats us well, and we're very happy to be with them. So.
Absolutely. And so how many members are you up to right now? I know you said you're kind of a newer group. You guys kind of got started right around that time frame when COVID was just about to hit. So I know there was some struggles there kind of all the way across the board with all these groups. Where are you guys at right now? Yeah,
we had the club for probably 2016, I think is when it started, maybe even 15, but it did kind of almost go defunct during COVID. We have probably in the local area 20, maybe 25 people. You know how it goes. Not everyone shows up at the bar 17 weeks in a row, but people are in and out. We've got, again, a small but local group. The other good thing, because it's New Orleans, there is always tourists in town. Look us up on our Facebook page. Come out and join us. And that boosts our numbers. We will have up to 50 on certain weeks, and we have less than that on a lot of weeks too. But the tourists always come out, and a lot of them are diehards and love supporting us.
Nice. And so, even though you're a small group and you guys kind of did everything you could to hold it together during the COVID years, I'm sure you guys have probably worked with some charities. Is there any charities you want to shout out that you guys have been involved with?
Yeah, the main one we've worked with is the Jefferson Parish SPCA, animal rescue organization. Dog Pound made sense with that. And we're trying to get back affiliated with them again. Hopefully that'll happen soon. Again, rebuilding after COVID. We're making strides, and we're doing better this year than we were last year. So,
no, that's awesome. I mean, we hear we've covered all sizes of Browns backers groups, big, small, everywhere in between, and these smaller ones that kind of, it took everything you had to hold it together during COVID are just as admirable and just as impactful in their communities as some of these bigger ones are.
Well, I think there's different life cycles too, right? I mean, some of these groups have been around since before the Browns backers were really officially the Browns backers,
right?
And then you have some that have been created in the last few years, so just kind of different stages along the way, but yeah, hopefully you guys continue to grow.
Yeah. And so, Bobby, how did you become a Browns fan?
Well, so my dad was in the Air Force, and he is from the Ashtabula area, kind of outside of Cleveland. And I was born in Dayton, but left that before I even remember, and grew up in different places on military bases, mostly in South Carolina. But growing up on military bases, it's not unusual to be around sports fans from all different places. And honestly, I'm old enough. The Panthers were not in Charlotte at the time I was living in South Carolina. So there wasn't a local team in particular. That's also college football territory, as you can imagine. So I just always watched my dad's team with him. And even moving to New Orleans, there was no – I moved here before Breeze got here. So when the Saints were still in the doldrums, but even when Breeze got here and the team got good, I was never going to leave the Browns. And Saints was never an option for me. So 20 years later, I'm still rooting against the Saints most weeks.
So kind of being born into it, but also being exposed to multiple other teams. At any point, did you think to yourself, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, there was a year that we it was either the 1-15 year or the 0-16 year. There was a game. Sunday was New Year's Day, and I was hungover, and I was sitting there Sunday morning thinking, I don't want no one to be at the bar for the Browns club. So I went there. There was one other guy from our club who was there, and the two of us sat there and watched the Browns lose again, hungover on New Year's Day. I'm like, we should have been home watching the Rose Bowl or something. But there was a moment like, why are we doing this?
That was the low point.
Everybody, I feel like every Browns fan has had that moment. Like you look at somebody, even like the long time fans. Like, have you had a moment like 1973? Like, just
Well, the way this fan base is, it's almost like it's like an addiction, right? It's like you hit rock bottom at some point. Every one of us has.
If you're like the newer generation, you just hit rock bottom every 2 or 3 years, you know. So
and sometimes you get used to it. It's almost like I can laugh at the comedy, but I will say a couple years of Baker and then making the playoffs last year, I believed again, and now it's starting hurting again when I had become immune to it at one point. But yeah, it hurts a little more than it used to. But
don't worry. We all made that mistake.
So is New Orleans home for you forever? You ever think about moving anywhere else? Sounds like you've been to a lot of different places.
Probably. I mean, I've been here for 20 years. My folks still live in Charleston, South Carolina. And if the right opportunity ever came up, I would maybe move back there. But I'm not looking, and I'm pretty happy here again.
Nice.
After 20 years, this is my home now, I suppose.
Yeah, I get that. I would not want to. I hear stories of people who grew up like with military families, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how you can do that.
Moving around a lot.
Yeah. But no, so one question that I had for you that, you know, being in New Orleans and the Superdome is hosting the Super Bowl this year. So you're kind of going to get exposed to that even more. But do you think that, you know, obviously the Browns decided they're going with a dome, at least for now. We'll see what happens legally. But for now, they decided they were going with a dome. Do you think the Super Bowl, being able to host the Super Bowl, had a big part to play in that?
Maybe. I assume the Haslams just want to have concerts there in the winter. I mean, the Super Bowl might be part of it too, but the dome just makes it easier to run non-football events. Like, you can play football in the snow to an extent. You can't listen to Bruce Springsteen or U2 in the snow the same way. And I hate moving a stadium out to the burbs, but I've only followed that story a little bit being here in New Orleans. So I'm not familiar with all the ins and outs, but moving out to the burbs never seems like a good idea to me. But, you know, if people can get there, I don't know what public transit's like, but if the fans can get there, I guess it'll be okay. I'd rather see it stay downtown.
When was the last Super Bowl in New Orleans? Was it the Breeze year?
The Ravens Niners won when the lights went out with Beyonce.
Okay.
That was the last one. I don't remember.
You think the lights go out this year?
No, I think they'll get that under control. That's not going to happen again. That was a black eye for a lot of people here. I don't remember what year it was, but that was the one. They were actually supposed to have it last year, but someone looked at the calendar and realized it was going to interfere with Mardi Gras, and they decided they needed to switch it to this year instead of 2024. So
smart.
Yeah.
No, I was just curious. I mean, obviously you've been there and had a Super Bowl in your town. Like, how crazy is it during that week?
It gets pretty crazy. ESPN sets up in some parking lots in the French Quarter along the river and broadcasts kind of all day long. They have various fan events, that kind of thing. I went to the Super Bowl in Jacksonville one year, and it feels like New Orleans is a better setup for the Super Bowl than Jacksonville was. Although that's the only time I've been somewhere besides New Orleans, so I don't have a great frame of reference. I will say this, Taylor Swift came at the last week of October, and that was every bit, 3 days of Taylor Swift was every bit as crazy as the Super Bowl.
I can imagine.
I think Mardi Gras is still number one for crazy in New Orleans, though.
I can only imagine. But no, yeah, so I mean, onto the football side of things here, though. What are your thoughts on this year's version of the Cleveland Browns? I mean, obviously we've been bad, but like, what do you think?
What went wrong?
Yeah, what went wrong? I mean, there was high expectations. So where do you think it all went wrong?
I mean, Watson's a problem. I mean, the rest of this team is good enough, at least at the beginning of the season, It was always going to be if the quarterback plays decent, this team could win some games. If the quarterback plays not, they're going to lose a lot. Quarterback play was worse than I anticipated, even with that being said. The other thing is some of those games were close. Like the Raiders game was winnable. A couple of those other games were completely winnable if things broke a little different. And then, I don't know, but it's all the quarterback, and the quarterback was bad.
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of Kenny's been saying basically since we got Deshaun Watson that we shouldn't have got Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, he's been calling, and it wasn't all focused on off the field stuff. There was, that had something to do with it, but Kenny has said, like, I don't know that he's ever going to be the quarterback they think he is, and that turned out to be true. So, and not only that, Andrew Berry has now kind of signaled like this is probably the end for him. Like we're probably not having him back. You know how they do. They left the door open, but it's probably not happening.
Yeah, I can't imagine they can realistically bring it back.
And so, do you think? How do you think the Browns are going to fare the rest of the season with Jameis Winston filling in?
The Athletic this week told me they think DTR is going to be playing at some point. Winston, we got 2 games of Winston, and watching him in New Orleans for a few years, that's exactly how it goes. He looks great, throws for 5,000 yards, and then he looks terrible and throws 4 picks, and you get both. They were worse than I was expecting last week, but again, that's the Winston experience. At this point, I don't see them winning a lot of games, and maybe I hate to be one of those tanking for the draft kind of guys. It's not baseball where the season is completely falling apart. Winning 3 more games will still be better than winning 1 more game. I will feel better at the end of the year if they've got 5 wins rather than if they have 3. But at the same time, they got to start thinking about a quarterback in the future, and none of the guys on the roster are that guy, in my opinion.
No, and I think we could all agree they definitely don't have the quarterback of the future on the roster right now.
And let's not trade for one right now either. Let's just do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, I see. I don't even know where to go with that because we've tried it the old-fashioned way about 100 times and missed every single time. So, I'm not saying that trading is the answer either. I'm just saying I don't even know where to start there.
Are you so? Speaking of that, I think it's an interesting segue into next year. Are you confident in this organization, this front office, Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, and picking the right guy going forward?
Confident, no, but it seems like the trade for Watson came from above Barry's level. No one's going to say that. Seems like that's what happened. Barry, otherwise, in my opinion, has mostly done a pretty good job, and Stefanski generally seems to know what he's doing as well. He gets some weird hiccups now and then, especially towards the end of games. But that Colts game last year in particular, I felt like he really screwed that one up. But I don't think Stefanski is the problem. He's been here, 4 years, won Coach of the Year twice. I would, if the 2 of those guys are on their own free will and not unduly influenced by the powers that be, I think they can do a decent job.
Yeah. The only thing I would say, I would push back a little bit on Andrew Berry specifically. Because yes, you're correct on Stefanski. Stefanski has made some silly calls, but Stefanski is 2 out of 4 years Coach of the Year. So Andrew Berry, though, we've talked about it a lot in the last few weeks here, is what draft picks can you point to that have actually really panned out for him? And really all we've got is Grant Delpit and JOK. Okay. You've got Cedric Tillman as a maybe at this point. He's had some good games, but not big enough sample size. And same thing with DeJuan Jones. Played really well his rookie year. Came out this year, played really bad the first part of the year, and then they moved him to left tackle, and he seems to be adequate. Like, he's not really playing super well, but he's not playing poorly either at left tackle. So I think that the best thing that Andrew Berry does is move decimal points.
He's a cap guy for sure.
So
which might be important in the next couple years for this team to be able to figure out.
That's a fair assessment. That's a fair assessment. So, personnel wise, specifically, I don't know if he's got it, but you are right. We need to move money around for sure.
Is there a college quarterback that is the apple of your eye at this point? Anybody that you're interested in?
No, I don't try. I mean, all these guys look beatable this year. I mean, there's not an Andrew Luck sitting there, I don't think. I don't know. A lot of people around here are big on Arch Manning, but I guess he's probably not coming out in the draft this year. He's probably a year or two away. I don't know. Ewers wasn't good enough to make it at Ohio State, and what does that mean? Ohio State's had good quarterbacks, and they've had mediocre quarterbacks both. I guess
the only thing I'll say about that is Joey B technically wasn't good enough to make it at Ohio State either. So.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, you're right, Joey B. But Stroud is as good as anyone. I don't know. There's not a quarterback I'm itching to see go to this team. And
that goes back to my point about, like, do we take the chance in the draft? Because we've missed on everyone. So I guess with our luck, we're going to miss.
I guess that being said, do you think the best plan is maybe to use like a Jameis or a DTR as a bridge quarterback next year and continue to wait for a guy?
Possibly. Let's see how the rest of the season goes, and I'll have a better answer to that. If the rest of the season is a catastrophe, like, we just need to move on. If they tread water, like, yeah, sure, let's give it a chance.
Yeah. Okay, so let's focus on this week's game. Obviously, you're in New Orleans, so are you hearing anything from the local radio stations or local guys, newspaper, if those exist anymore, TV, any of those things, as far as how they're feeling about their team down there and what they think is going to happen in this weekend's game?
I haven't listened to too much talk on this week's game yet. I mean, it's Monday night, so we haven't had a lot of coverage. We're still wrapping up the game yesterday.
Which they won.
Saints did win. Saints fans in general do not like this team. This team's got some cap issues. They're not identical to the Browns, but they've been kicking the can down the road on the cap for a long time, and they're in cap hell. In some ways worse than we are, and they're going to have to get worse before they get better. They also don't have a quarterback, and everyone hates the quarterback they do have. So that's the take on this team right now. No one's thrilled, even though they beat Atlanta yesterday.
Yeah. And so, with that being said, and just what you've seen out of them, what you've seen out of the Browns, do you have a score prediction for this week's game?
Low scoring, let's say 24-17 Browns.
Oh, nice. Going Browns.
I'll take it.
Going Browns. Awesome. Well, listen, Bobby, it's been fantastic having you on. We really appreciate your time. We will be in New Orleans this weekend with True Fan Travel on our getaway, and we will be stopping by at some point or another to come see you. So just get ready for that. All three of us are gonna come through, and we may
crash your party.
We may already be inebriated when we get there, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we're gonna have a good time down there in New Orleans. So
all right, and our Browns Backers Bash is going to be Saturday night at the Mid-City Yacht Club as the bar. You can look it up. The information's on our Facebook page. And like I said earlier, it doubles as the Buckeyes bar. So if you want to get there at 11 a.m. and stay till 11 p.m., you can do the Buckeyes game and then straight on into the Browns Backers Bash. Both happening at the same place. And so love to have everyone. We're not selling tickets. Just show up. Come on down.
Bobby, you may have talked all three of us into it. So, but yeah, we'll make sure we put the flyer up as an overlay on the interview and get that information out there as well. You heard it from Bobby. Backers Bash at, where is it, Bobby?
The Mid-City Yacht Club.
Be there. Bobby, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks.
We're the New Orleans Browns backers, and you're listening to Burning River Sportscast. Go Browns!